Yes, people, welcome back. Because is this the time? Is this the season that Arsenal finally land the golden glory? The Premier League. The Premier League. They've wanted that for 20 years. They've come close in the last 3 seasons. But this summer, they have given Mikel Arteta no excuses. There's no room for ever now. Viktor Gyokeres, Eberechi Eze, Mosquera. Not forgetting Zubimendi. Not forgetting Hincampe. Not forgetting Kepa. Not forgetting Norgard. The list goes on. Are we now looking at this as a 10 out of 10 window? Or is there still more to be done? Let's discuss Arsenal's transfer window 2025-2026 season. Because guys, I look at this transfer window and I'm thinking, wow. If Arsenal fans knew the type of players they were going to be coming into in this new season with, they would have bit your hand off. Because for me, this has to be probably the best window of the season. And I know Liverpool have made a lot of signings as well, but I have to have them on par. I have to look at what Arsenal are adding to a team that is already built, what's already there, the foundations that have been laid by Mikel Arteta, and now Berta coming in from Atletico Madrid. And you look at this transfer window and you think, Arsenal have to be there at the end of the season. There are no excuses for this club not to be winning or being within 5 points when it comes to game week 38 and that season is wrapped up. Because they've got everything. Everything you could have asked for, down to the last few days of the window where everyone was saying, Rodrigo or Eze. Bring me one of them, and Arsenal are in a fantastic position to go and challenge Liverpool, and not only challenge, but overtake Liverpool. But Liverpool had other ideas. Liverpool then went out and got Alexander Isak, who is the most complete forward in the world. And look, that is probably the best and biggest transfer of the summer window. Everyone would agree with that. 130 million, you don't care where that money's going. You're getting the best striker in the world right now. And Arsenal fans would have begged for him. They would have bit your hand off to say Isak or Gyokeres, because everyone wanted Isak at Arsenal. They looked at him as the Henry 2.0, and I understand why. Dribbling ability, link-up play, finishing, aerial ability, aura, skill, personality. I understand why Isak 14 would have hit at Arsenal, but it is Viktor Gyokeres. So let's talk about it. Viktor Gyokeres being the signing that's come in as the main transfer at Arsenal Football Club in terms of their front line. Now, we all know he's got 50 plus goals in the last couple of seasons for Sporting Lisbon, but the Premier League's a different ballgame. And we all know that. Doing it in the Portuguese League and doing it in the Premier League are two different things. But he arrived from Sporting Lisbon for 65 million euros, 27 years of age, in his peak, in his prime. And that's what Arsenal have needed. Arsenal over the last couple of seasons have had Gabriel Jesus, they've had Kai Havertz, and it's not quite worked out in some games where they've needed to turn the 1-1s into 2-1s or the 0-0s into 1-0s. Sometimes you want a striker that just gets one chance in the game and he can put the ball in the back of the net. I'll be honest with you, someone like Viktor Gyokeres gives me that vibe, because I don't think his all-round game is great. For 65 million, it is the current market. This is what happens now when you're spending big boy money in the big boy transfer market. But I don't think, Gyokeres' all-round game is the best, when it comes to the hold-up play, the aerial ability. But when it comes to ball striking and the finishing, he has got that in his locker. And sometimes you don't need a player that's going to do the whole link-up thing anyway. Sometimes you've got players like Odegaard, you've got Saka, you've got Madueke, you've got Eze now. You've got Declan Rice, you've got Zubimendi, you've got Nwaneri, you've got Max Dowman. You've got players that can do all the link-up in the pretty football in behind. But sometimes you just want a striker that can put the ball in the back of the net. And I think Gyokeres will do that. I've set Gyokeres personally a target of 20 league goals. People might have thought that was high. People might have thought, you could have said 25. But I think coming from Portugal, 25 is a big number. Not many hit 25. 15, I think, is a solid season, to be fair. But if I was him and I want to be winning that Premier League crown, then I think having an aim of 20 when you've scored 50 in all competitions in your last 2 seasons, that's a target that I think intrinsically will have. And we've seen it already. When Gyokeres is not scoring, he looks like he's a bit frustrated because he's used to scoring goals. But it's going to be harder in the England. It's going to be harder in the Premier League. Competition is different. But he has got that English provenness. Playing at Coventry, in a championship where it's physical and critical, and he's done it there. So I do think that he will acclimatise better than what other players might do across the league. But Viktor Gyokeres was the first big arrival. And I do think that Arsenal, they needed that striker. You then look at Zubimendi arriving for 70 million euros from Real Sociedad, comes in at the perfect ripe age of 26. That's like the perfect age when you buy a player. But for me, Thomas Partey out, Zubimendi came in. And when you look at what Zubimendi's done for Spain in the Euros and what he's done for Real Sociedad in terms of helping them get quite far in Europe and just in general in La Liga, where he was very confident on the ball, very good in duels, so physically he's not really going to be beaten as much. He's going to come in and compete. I think Zubimendi made a lot of sense. We know that Liverpool were looking at him. Liverpool nearly had that deal done. That deal didn't get done. And 12 months later, he's now an Arsenal player. He's linking up with a coach, Mikel Arteta, who used to play the same position in terms of central midfield. And I think Zubimendi will be one of them signings that you look back on and think, and that's very shrewd business. Because I think Zubimendi gives you that element of control. And I love players like that. I'm a Man United fan, but when Michael Carrick left the football club, we're still not replaced him. We're nearly 8-9 years later. Having a profile like that of Thomas Partey that can get the ball, just control it from deep, dictate the tempo, pass through the lines, be calm, slow it down when needed. They're so good at what they do. Look at Adam Wharton in the Premier League for Crystal Palace. Look at Rodri for Manchester City. Those profiles are hard to find. And Zubimendi, even though he's not quite that specific profile, because he's a bit more in his jewels as well, he has got that element of technical ability that he can do that. He can do that. And I think Arsenal needed a midfielder. They needed someone that could come in and start. And I think the big thing for having Zubimendi is also the fact that it unlocks Declan Rice. I think that is key to Arsenal, getting the best out of Declan Rice, because Declan Rice is not a number 6, and we all know that. But now having Declan Rice next to Zubimendi allows Declan Rice to break forward, get up and down the pitch, break lines, get in the box, score, create. Try and add that volume to his game, because you know you've got someone like Zubimendi you can trust, who's going to be there, recovering, sitting there, dictating the tempo. And I think this is another top signing for Arsenal. And I think that's what's the clever thing about Arsenal, is that they've gone out and spent quite a lot of money. Their net spend is 257 million, which I believe is the highest in the Premier League this summer in terms of net spend. But they've gone out and got starters. They've gone out and got people that they need. And I think Zubimendi at the age of 26, he's only going to get better. And I think it's a very good signing. Now, we'll talk about the signing that I think everyone knows they needed. That is Mr. Eberechi Eze himself, who joined from Crystal Palace for 69 million euros. And I'm doing euros on here because that's what euros is on transfer market. Shout out those guys there. But Eze, for me, I might look at this and say that this is Arsenal's, in terms of the players I like to watch, in terms of the players I like to see, this might be my favorite signing for Arsenal Football Club. He just fits it, man. Eze is Arsenal. We saw the announcement video. We saw Ian Wright doing his thing. We saw some people, brought to tears by the video. We saw the music, let it all work out. Let it all work out. It hits, man. It was different. And I love Eze in terms of him as a person. He does a lot of work with children outside of football, disabled people as well, work for the community. He's just a grounded human being that's got that natural gift of being a sensational footballer. And I wish him nothing but the best. I don't like Arsenal. I don't want him to win anything, of course. But I hope Eze can go there and enjoy himself and showcase what's got him this move, because he's been through it, man. He's been at Millwall. He's been at QPR. He's been at Wickham. He's been released from other clubs when he was a kid. And he's now earned himself a chance to play at his team that he was at when he first started football, which is Arsenal. And he's back there now at 27, trying to help them win the Premier League. And sometimes I think certain things are written in the stars, and maybe it might be for Eberechi Eze to help Arsenal win the Premier League. Because you could imagine he's going to play such an important part. And I think the reason they signed him as well is, when you look at it, you've got two sides. The first one I'll talk about is Martin Odegaard. Martin Odegaard is a player that is a phenomenal player on his day, but he doesn't give you consistency. And he's had no competition in that number 10 role that, when you're playing 2 games a week or you're in the Champions League or whatever it is, you can't really take him out. He's the captain. He's the staple of the team. He's going to play. However, I don't think just because you're a captain, it means you're going to be guaranteed starts. Now, having Eze that's come in, he gives him competition. He keeps him on his toes. We've seen Eze thrive for Crystal Palace in that 10 role, even though they play it slightly different. He plays on the left-hand side of the 10. But he gives you goals. He gives you creativity. He's a great dribbler. He can ball carry with it. He takes players out of the game. He also takes games by the scruff of the neck with his individual brilliance and skill. And I love that. He is like that street footballer that brings it to the professional game, but he also has that IQ to be a professional footballer when he needs to, but also bring the streets out with him when he needs to. And I love that in Eze. And I hope that Arteta keeps that in his game. And I now think that's the competition that Odegaard needed. But also, he can play alongside Odegaard. He gives you that flair. He gives that creativity. And when Arsenal are playing teams they should be beating, you can now play them together potentially. And this is where it comes into it. Martinelli, Madueke, they're good players on their day. Madueke more so over Martinelli, but Martinelli's done for me. He's finished. That experiment's over. And if Arsenal want to be winning the Premier League and competing for the biggest trophies, you can't have a weakness in your team as such. And I look at Martinelli now, when I look at that midfield and that attack, and he is the weak link. We saw him against Liverpool on the weekend before the international break. He just wasn't good enough. And we had Szoboszlai playing at right back. He couldn't take him on, couldn't beat him, couldn't make an impact. And they had to throw on Eze. And I think now Eze could now take that left wing spot. And you're looking at an attack of Gyokeres, Odegaard, Saka, Eze. And you're thinking that's got creativity, that's got spark. Maybe it misses a bit of pace in behind, directness. But the ball to feet, the technical ability that they can have in retaining possession and just keep going and going, Eze could now start on the left wing. And I think that's why they signed him, because I said it had to be Rodrigo or it had to be Eze. Getting any of the two makes a big impact for Arsenal Football Club because they come in as starters. And that is what Eze is going to do now. He's going to come in for me. And after this international break, he is starting for Mikel Arteta. Martinelli, with your pace in behind, you can be the impact off the bench. You can kind of be that Garnacho, running behind, trying, get a goal, stretch the pitch, stuff like that. You might be good for European games. But fortunately for me, I have to say to you now, you're not a starter. You're not a starter at this football club when it comes to the big games at Arsenal no longer. So the Eze one makes so much sense. Brilliant signing for Arsenal. The fans can connect. The fans can relate. And I also think he wants it as well. He wants to be a player that makes a big impact to the football club. And look, Noni Madueke, that signing there, I think it's a clever signing. I know the money that they've spent is quite a lot. Chelsea are very good at selling players, but, the market value is what Chelsea do. 56 million euros. I think it was probably about 45, 50 million pounds. You've got a player who's young. You've got a player who's 23. He's not going to demand to start every game. But what he does give you is tactical versatility. He can play on the left. He can play on the right. And we've seen him play on the right-hand side already for Saka, deputising for him when he's injured. And that is a good deputy to have. You're not really looking at Madueke and complaining as such, because you've got an able deputy that can at least contribute. And I thought fair play to him. Away at Liverpool, he was actually Arsenal's best attacking outlet. I thought he actually was on the pitch and stood and could be counted for. So fair play to Noni Madueke. And I know the fee might be a bit higher than what you'd want to pay. I think that's the only negative. I think in terms of depth and giving you some quality on the left and right, especially when you're playing two competitions each week, I think that's a solid signing. And I think that's one that actually might be better than what people think, because Madueke was getting a lot of criticism actually before he left. And I hadn't seen loads in him, but for why Arsenal was signing him, for me, it made a lot of sense. And I can see why they've done that. Another one that's come in, and I think it's been better than what a lot of people have thought. And I actually think his potential is much better than the value. 50 million euros for Christian Mosquera at 21, the Colombian international, coming in from Valencia. I've been impressed. I've liked it, because I think what Mikel Arteta and Berta have done, which has been very clever here, is they've bought someone that is actually fitting in with the profile of what they need and what they intend to have with their centre-backs and their defence. Physical dominance. Calm on the ball and physical dominance. He's fine on the ball. I have no questions about that whatsoever. He's not amazing, but he's fine on the ball. But the physical presence and the aura, he seems to be commanding. He seems to be knowing what he wants to do when he's on the ball. He seems to be knowing what he wants to do with positioning. He's safe. He's secure. He came on against Liverpool and he was fine. No mistakes, and a big game to come on and make your proper Premier League first game where you're playing a majority of it over 60 minutes. He was absolutely fine. And I think for 15 million euros, this might be the shrewdest bit of business that Arsenal done. I think Eze is the big signing and the one I'm like, yeah, I really like it from a personal standpoint. In terms of being shrewd, in terms of being smart and intelligent, getting a centre-back like Mosquera in that can cover for Gabriel and Saliba and now enable them to maybe have a rest day when they need to, if you've got a big game in midweek or the weekend, and you've got someone like Mosquera coming in, perfect, no problems at all. And I think that might be the cleverest part of business that Arsenal have done, because 50 million euros for a 21-year-old centre-back as talented as him, I think it's clever. And then also you wrap it up. I'm not going to say too much, but you've got Christian Norgard, comes in with Premier League experience at 31 years of age, signed for just over 10 million or around 10 million pounds. You've got Kepa coming in as a second goalkeeper behind David Raya, Premier League proven again. Yes, he makes mistakes, but he had a good season at Bournemouth last year, 30 years of age, around 5 million. And then you've got Hincampe, who is the interesting one. I didn't expect that to happen really on, deadline day, really. But you've got a player that can come in and play at left back and play at left centre back. So Arsenal have now got strength in depth. They've got quality now. And I think that's the difference. You can have a very good starting 11, which is what I felt Arsenal had. But now you look at them and they've got a starting 11 plus a bench that can make a difference, that can make an impact. And when they're rotating, you're not looking at it and thinking there's a considerable drop-off. And this is why I think Arsenal have their best ever shot at winning the Premier League this season. Man City are not Man City at the moment. They're adjusting. Liverpool, they did not get the centre-back they needed. Whereas you look at Arsenal's defence, they've got 4 or 5 quality centre-backs now that they can rotate between, on top of having the best partnership with Gabriel and Saliba. They're ready. They're built for 38 games. They're built for the Champions League now. They're built to have a squad. They're built to rotate. And they're built to win games and defend leads. This might be the most complete Arsenal setup I've seen in years. Now it's to see if they can deliver. Because this Premier League window for them, I'd probably rate it about a 9. They've got Zubimendi. You've got Eze. You've got Gyokeres. You've got Hincampe. You've got Norgard that's coming. I don't know who I've just not named there as well. You've got Madueke that's coming. You look at it, and in terms of the team that they already have, in terms of adding to the quality they've now got with the signings, their team is like a 9 out of 10. So the window can be a 9 because I'm adding it to what they've already got. I think it's brilliant for Arsenal. The fans have seen their team be backed. They've now got to deliver it on the pitch. Mikel Arteta, you might be the only guy that's under pressure now. But let's see what happens between now and May. I'm not going to say too much. But Arsenal fans, let me know what you're rating this window. Let me know what you would have added. And let me know what you're thinking to this season. I'm excited to see your comments, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please make sure you smash a like. Please make sure you subscribe. And this is the Arsenal transfer window of 2025-2026 summer season. Thank you for watching.